Hey Maggie, how you doing?
Hey, Nasir, I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks
Great,
for
great.
having me.
Oh man, I'm so glad that you join us. Thank you for joining the podcast on due diligence. Uh, it is an amazing topic today because it's one of those things that people are really worried about and scared about. So
Hmm.
today we're going to be covering tenants. Tenant selection and how to fill your vacancy the proper way so that you don't how you say run away from the deal.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I came across is as I talk to many people, family, friends, when I'm trying and usually I'm more advocating people to invest at least in one property. Okay,
Hmm.
but many of the responses that I get, it's all about, oh, they're going to trust your property, the tenants, just that bad kind of vision cloud. And I
Hmm.
keep saying that there is a way to do it, there is a way to properly do it, and that's what you need to be educated on. Buying a deal, you can buy a deal and definitely get your mortgage and everything, but tenant are your customers, right? So it goes back to you, if you don't do it properly, of course you will get the bad experience. So
Right.
so Maggie, thank you very much for joining us, and really wanted to hear from you and share, because you have some stuff you're going to be talking about it, and probably hopefully you're going to give some guidelines to our viewers. So let's start with what are the common mistakes you have seen, Maggie?
Yeah, no, Nasir, it's interesting when you say that some people are hesitant to invest in real estate and they say that, they're just scared. And I understand that because there's a lot of, things happening in social media. You hear of different stories, you're hearing it in the news. I always think that when you're investing in real estate, you're always going to come across problems, like always. And for every problem, there's always a solution. So finding tenants from my perspective, is just another piece of being a real estate investor that you need to figure out. And when you're going in, it's really important to be prepared, to have a plan like anything else, and make sure that you have a solution if a problem were to come up. So a lot of times when I'm hearing the same concerns as you, it's likely those who just need to be a little bit more informed and educated that there are solutions to every problem. And some of the common mistakes that I've seen
Mhm.
are relatively new investors who go in with just that. They're not aware. Maybe they, got some advice from some people to, run the credit checks, just make sure the tenant's paying 2 times the monthly rent and so on and so forth, that they forget a lot of the important pieces in between.
Mhm.
So I think it's just around sometimes inconsistent process or just incorrect criteria for evaluating applicants as they come through. Because when you're evaluating people, it's not always, we don't always know what to do in those situations, right? And it's also just not having a full understanding of the selection process. Like, what are the important pieces that we need to identify before we go and post our rental ad, before we start talking to people, before we meet with them in person?
Mhm.
And then I think that if that happens, you don't take those steps, then a lot of times we're impatient because in our minds as investors, we can't help to think, okay, we need to make next month's rent.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been vacant
Been
already,
there.
save for, yeah, right. So automatically, like, okay, by next month, the first, I need to have someone in. And if you're not taking the correct steps in the process, what happens is you tend to say, okay, you know what? I have these, maybe they're okay, they sound okay, I'm just going to take a chance, right?
Yeah.
And so you just kind of cross your fingers and you hope it works out, and that's the worst thing you can do. Like, thinking, I think they're okay, there's some red flags there, but let's hopefully at least I'll make next month's rent. And that's just settling due to the lack of qualified tenants who
Mhm.
apply to your property. But
I see.
again, I think that understanding the steps prior, will help you really be a little bit more patient and understand that a vacant unit for a couple of months even is
Yeah.
better than a tenant who is, does the horrible things like
Oh yeah.
destroys your property or whatever the horror stories we hear. I know I've been through it myself too. It's really stressful and really, really frustrating for sure.
Yeah.
So I get it. And of course, in Ontario, the LTB, the landlord tenant board, is
Oh yeah.
it's not really in our favor. So there are some concerns there around being hesitant when selecting applicants.
So even better that we, like you said, being patient, when you selecting, right? I mean, we all
Yeah,
as the beginners, we kind of fell into that crack where we just finished renovation, we just bought it, we are tied in cash,
right.
and yeah, somebody's giving us money upfront 6 months. Sometimes you
Right.
see those kind of deals. I will give you 6 months of rent upfront,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and we are so happy about it, right? So oh, finally, finally have somebody, right? So
For sure.
and that's usually the as a beginner, you kind of, the money is flashing in your face, right? Because we are tied in cash, we need that mortgage to be paid, so w- we get stuck in that process. We whatever the first one comes in, if they have money, let them through,
Yeah. And it's so interesting, right? Because we invest so much, we put so much work into it. Yet when we get to this process, sometimes it can be overlooked because of that, you know, um, impatience, because we
Yeah.
need to, recover our, the money that we put in or that's tied up.
Yeah.
And I think we really have to take a step back and just understand the process before starting this, if in fact you are looking for your own tenants.
Right. And especially these days, we are doing deals with the private money, and so the cost is up there, and you are like in a rush, get it done so I can start paying people out, so
Right. We all have our spreadsheets with our numbers, right?
I know.
Right. Yeah.
I totally agree that it's better to lose 1 month than get stuck with the tenant, so wait another month, that's what I mean, to do your
Mhm.
proper due diligence, and otherwise you will be stuck with more months with the tenant.
For sure. I mean, we have a unit up a remote in a remote area, and very difficult to find the like qualified tenants, and we've had it vacant for a number of months now.
Hmm.
So I know the feeling, right? Like it becomes very stressful. In the minute you have someone that looks okay, you tend to be like, okay, maybe, right? But
Yeah.
again, you just have to think through long term, is this the right fit?
Right, right. So let's help the viewers here. So there must be a better way, right? So what will be the proper way? What are the steps that you are recommending as part of the due diligence? Beside money flushing around, somebody who wants to pay you 6 months, how can we help? Like, very systematic approach way, right? So I like checklists. I like check marks, like, okay.
Mhm.
And it's a mental note, right? It's a mental note.
Right.
All the due diligence that we do, it's all about, reducing the risk. It's not eliminating 100%, but it's definitely making you sleep at nighttime, because you have done your homework, right? So what are the processes that you actually, let's talk a little bit about your services,
Sure.
because you are the expert in this field. So let's talk a little bit, what are the best practices that you usually recommend to your clients, and the due diligence that you help them do, right? So let's talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can walk you through sort of I think, like the tenant placement process and how I view it.
Awesome.
And then I can talk to you about our services after, because it kind of it all fits in. Once I tell people about the process, a lot of that response is like, I don't want to do it. It takes too much time.
Right.
And that's where our services come in.
Right.
But yeah, with every, in every situation, in my mind, there's always the right process and the right steps to take. And like you said, it's how do you mitigate those risks?
Hmm.
And so the first thing is, you have a property and you want to make sure you're finding the right tenants. You want to attract people to your property. That's the first and foremost. You need to advertise widely. And there's a lot of different websites that you can advertise on. The most common would be something like Marketplace or Kijiji. And I know that most people who look for their own tenants advertise on these two sites, which are pretty popular. But when you're advertising, I think a lot of the what people might miss is how you're writing your rental ad. Because if you take a look on site, and if you're taking a look at a number of properties, you're going to see a common type of 3-bedroom, renovated, XYZ point form. And I think this is like really your chance to showcase your property. And what you want to look at is, who is your tenant profile? Like, who is it you want to rent to? Because in your mind the type of person where they, do they have a family? Do they, if it's close to a hospital, it could be someone working out. So you kind of know what that tenant profile is, and you want to attract them to your property. So it's about highlighting some of the important pieces and putting yourself almost in the tenant's shoes to say, what am I looking for if I were to look in this area? So it's, making sure that you're listing exactly things that might be of benefit for them. So, if it's close to any hospitals, major schools, major highways, is there, big backyard where their family could, get together in the summer for parties or barbecues? Like, you kind of want to paint that picture very similar to how you see properties posted on MLS, right? It gives you a beautiful description, and it allows you to imagine yourself in the property. And again, you want to sort of differentiate yourself from maybe 5 other properties that might be also for rent in your, on your street potentially. And then you also want to make sure that you're taking amazing pictures. And I can't stress this enough. I think professional photography, whether you hire someone, I think we have great technology ourselves where we can take bright pictures, but it still amazes me how I go and I take a look at different properties and it's dark and it's dingy, or it's not even, maybe showing properly, or it's, messy, things like that, right? So things that I notice, and I think that's really important. And then one thing that I think is really helpful is providing a video tour. So that could be something as simple as posting something on YouTube, but again, it helps provide that experience to someone who, can really take a look at the property. Because of course, when people come and see the property, they want to see, like, is this a fit for me? But if you have that already on video, it's a lot easier. Mm-hmm. So by the time you have your conversation with that person, they come, they already know, like they already know, I already want it.
So, I mean, those two things that you just mentioned. So I just placed, I had a property, I had a vacancy, and after reading your step-by-step guideline that you're going to talk about, is the video. And, I've never done that for the 10 years I've been putting the properties out there.
Right.
I mean, I will put the description, like you said, the avatar of the tenant, what I'm looking for: schools, parks, walking, shopping, groceries and all that stuff. I will detail that in the ad. But this walkthrough was really the ice on the cake. Right? Mm-hmm. It was a really amazing idea because it gave that feeling of you walking through the property and showing around, and that made a huge difference between other ads, because like you said, the other ads are like very minimum, 3 lines, especially like I'm in Brampton, Ontario. So
right.
Lots of ads that I see here is, 3-bedroom, this very short.
Right.
It doesn't give you that perspective of what's around it,
Mm-hmm.
Where am I moving? Is this in the boonies or is somewhere in like it doesn't give you that, right? So that's what you're talking about, right? Give the picture of your property, right?
Yeah, exactly. Again, it comes around selling your property, right? We really want to showcase it at its best. And I mean, this goes back to, making sure it is spotless, like things like that, making sure that we're also doing those repairs that maybe we didn't do over the last 5 years when that tenant was there, right? Painting and things like that. So by the time you're showcasing your property, it's done. You've done all your repairs, you maybe pulled out the carpet or whatever updates you need. But I also find that it's been helpful for those who are maybe outside of the province, who are looking to relocate, or someone who, again, and I have properties that are remote. So a lot of people that are moving from Toronto to, this property just can't come in for a showing. So, I mean, this is something that they've seen it, they've seen the video, and, they've signed just based on what they've seen. Yeah.
Wow.
So very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to differentiate yourself, I think there is some extra homework, information that you have to provide, right? So,
Right, for sure.
So let's move to the next step. Like once you do that, right? So what now? People are
Yeah.
flooding into your calls, and like now the
Yeah. And
calls
that's
are
the
ringing,
thing.
the messaging is, on your marketplace, they're just coming up. I have like
Yeah.
20 of them, and
Oh
that
yeah,
gets
I mean, like
overwhelming.
it is overwhelming, especially when you have a really great, you're showcasing it, you're going to get a ton of responses.
Right.
And that is the applicant management piece. Because this is a business, we really have to make sure, number one, we are getting back to people ASAP and you're responding, hopefully to everyone. But in that process, it's also important to do some pre-screening, right? Because sometimes it's really hard if you have 30, 40, 50 people applying to that one property.
Right.
I could guarantee probably half of them didn't read the ad, maybe didn't even take a look at the pictures. They're just, constantly just sending a note to everybody in that specific area. So what I like to do is provide a set of pre-screening questions. And this could be as easy as even writing 3 questions on your rental ad, right?
Okay.
Because if people respond to those 3 questions, it means they've actually read your ad and they've taken the time to do that. Or you can do something as easy as a Google Docs that's free. You can include the link on your rental ad, or something like Jot Form. Again, it's another free form that you can get people to complete as well. So you can have your list of questions there, and it would be really telling because those who are really interested will complete the pre-screen, and that will be they take the time to do that, and you can really see the differences in responses and who's really interested. And from there, what I like to do is schedule a phone call with them. And this is a piece that I think a lot of people I don't know if they just don't have the time to, because you might have a lot of applicants, but this is probably the most important piece, is just getting to know the person, because this is where you can get a lot of the information. And these conversations over the phone would be similar to when you're meeting people at the house for a showing. It's just a casual conversation. You're asking open-ended questions, and you're trying to just understand what are the person's motivations, why are they interested in your property, like really simple things. And a lot of the questions that you're asking on the pre-screen, they're taken from maybe the application form that you have. So it's not like you're asking anything outside of what you're not allowed to ask, because of course we have, our human rights code that we need to follow. We've got to be really careful on how we're responding, and we're, asking applicants. So yeah, I mean, we're taking some of those pre-screening questions right off the application, just the real simple ones, getting people to complete them. And then from those answers, you're starting your conversation. So it's not like you're just, someone's just saying, hey, I want to, right when you post it, they say, hey, can I book a showing? You haven't had any interaction, who this person is. And quite frankly, you don't even know if they're going to show up. So, when you have that person who's committed to take the time to complete it, and you've spoken on the phone 10, 15 minutes, told them a little bit more about the property, it's likely that they're going to show up to come and see the unit if that conversation goes well and they're still interested, right? Because a lot of times in those conversations, they might be looking for 2 parking, and you tell them it's 1, or there's no backyard or whatever. And so that's a good way of, screening people and, reducing them wasting their time coming and, having that conversation up front.
And did you feel that when you kind of meet those tenants, right? Like you said, you're looking at their interpersonal kind of, can you deal with this person in the future? And that's one thing I look in the future. If as a tenant profile is, can I personally deal with this person in the day-to-day kind of hours, right? Like when things come, or I'm going to be getting messages where they're just harassing me for every little thing, and this is broken or that broken, because things will happen.
Of
Okay.
course. Yeah.
Things will
Yeah.
broke. So what do you look for, like when you meet those tenants, or phone calls or meet them? I think meeting them will be more good reflection of,
Right.
over the phone, but meeting in person. So what are the things you look for, like especially this area? What is the hint there you can give me to say, you know what, this will be okay, this will be good, that you will be able to deal with this person in the future,
Yeah, and I think that's where the open-ended questions come in,
Mhm.
right? Because it's really hard to identify offhand, because at the end of the day, I think if they really want the unit, they're going to tell you what you want to hear, right? So I think in the initial pre-screen, it really is just finding out what are their motivations. For example, if you have a unit that you know you're going to sell in 3 years, it's likely if someone says, hey, I'm looking for a property that, next 10 years, I'm going to be there with my family, maybe that's not sort of the right fit for you. And then I like to ask them about, why they're looking at moving.
Right.
And a lot of those times when you ask them these things, they tell you, I'm having issues with my current landlord, or I'm not getting along with my tenants in my unit. Like it's interesting what comes out in these conversations if you understand how to ask the right questions. Right. And again, it's more of a open, what happened with those tenants? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? So people don't like to be interrogated. And if you are comfortable enough to, listen, which is the most important piece, and from that, understand, okay, what sort of follow-up question can I ask? Because they just told me, they were having issues because, and this happened, they said, I'm having issues with my current landlord, and I just want to get out.
Wow.
And okay, so tell me about that. Oh yeah, I've come across that myself. How have you been dealing with that? Like tell me a little bit about what sort of things are you looking for in the new property. So when you're asking these questions, and it's not always easy, right, to ask these questions and follow up, because you want to make sure you're asking them correctly without getting in there and asking the wrong questions. But when you treat it like an open conversation, like a friendly conversation, and they feel comfortable enough to open up to you, you can get a lot of those answers, right?
100%.
And then you can, and even when you do, and in those conversations, they still want to come and meet with you. I never not schedule a in-person showing with someone over the phone, even if I know in speaking with them, they might not be a good fit, right? Like I think everybody goes through the process. We make the time they go through it like everyone else, right? So they can still come in and take a look at that unit.
It's a fair market. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then when they come in, again, I can ask more of those questions face to face. There's something about that communication face to face that allows you to get more of that information out.
And like you said, as you talk to the person, you have the feeling that, you know what, you can deal with this person if there is a problem. Usually the relationship goes bad when there is little problems here and there. But how you manage the communication between the two of you, like the tenant and yourself, that screening is happening at the beginning.
Exactly. And, through in every pre-screen, I always like to talk about expectations in the process. So there's never any surprises, right? We're going to do this, you're going to come, we're going to meet, you're going to complete an application, we're going to do XYZ checks. And during that whole process, a lot of times, maybe you don't have the information, right? Like they didn't complete a form properly, or, if you asked information and they haven't sent it to you, and it's very telling in those back and forth conversations, how they respond to some of your requests. And so it's very telling just through, like you said, throughout the entire process.
Yeah. One of the questions I asked the last tenant's placement that I had to do was if there is an issue, and my response time is 48 hours, because today it's very difficult to find a repair person, or for any repairs. Are you okay with that? And what's your feeling on that? Can you wait for 48 hours? Oh, yes, we are fine. We understand that. So I try to see what their behavior is as well as part of the discussion.
Exactly.
Because, we don't have, repair or handyman sitting waiting for these guys, right? Like for all the tenants repairs, so I slide that as part of the due diligence myself and see what their response is, or if they will compare with the previous landlord, because sometimes the previous landlord could be a handyman and I'm not. I'm more of,
Exactly.
I will outsource it. But I need to make sure that they understand I'm not going to react on this because they send me an email, and I need to jump on it very quickly and, immediately.
For sure. And a lot of times when you're speaking with people as well, they tell you about certain issues from their previous properties, right? And
Mhm.
that's a good indication around asking those follow-up questions again. Oh, how was that managed by your landlord? How did that go?
That's right.
And, they could say, oh, well, they didn't call me within an hour and I was so disappointed and,
Ah,
I was really stressed out and
nuggets.
things like that. Yeah. And so you're like, okay,
That's
I
sweet.
see. I see. Yeah. So again, it's really it just goes back to just listening and understanding, picking those pieces up and knowing how to follow up with those questions to.
So it's all about listen and ask question and just listen. Don't talk too much
Yeah.
as a you ask and then just wait and see how the conversation keep going up. And
Yeah.
as you go, just keep adding a little bit of nuggets on questions. And
That's the only way we'll learn about, it's the only way we learn about people is just, listening and asking questions.
wow,
But yeah,
wow.
that's what I found, that in the process of looking for tenants, you're dealing with people. And, as much as we can have a wonderful credit and, they're in a good job, there's still that person there. And, you just have to
Wow.
really understand them. And that's the piece sometimes that I find is missing, is just getting
Wow.
to know the person a little
It's a
bit more.
science by itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's worse than a job interview, I think.
Well, that's the thing. That's my background, right? Like
Oh wow.
it's my background. Yeah. I'm in human resources and
No way.
I am. Yeah. I'm trained in behavioral interviewing.
Oh,
I've
sweet.
managed all
Wow,
of.
that's a nuggets. That's a nuggets right there.
Well, it's the thing, it's very similar, there's that need that you need to find. And
Uh-huh.
as good as your resume could be,
Oh
and
yeah.
as it's not about the resume, it's about the person. And it's is
Right,
that is
right,
that
right.
person a fit for this critical role that we have? And similarly, our
Wow.
our, our investments are the same, I think.
Man, I'm so excited to have you here. Just with your background and how you screening, it's amazing. It's amazing. Wow. Thank you for dropping these nuggets. It's just crazy.
Of course.
So let's talk a little bit about so you decided to create a guideline and to help people, right? As part of your, not only part of your service, but I downloaded your guideline and, by just giving an email address, I think, right?
Right. Yeah.
And you send automatically. So what was the, what do you are giving it away for free. So what is your plan? Like, what was the intention there? With this guideline.
I mean, I started Kennedy and Co, where we're not a property management company. That's a lot of questions. Is we just offer the tenant placement piece, and that's the piece that I'm really
Mhm.
passionate about because that's my background and my
Yeah,
career and what I
yeah.
do. And I'm also a real estate investor, and through my journey as a real estate investor, I found that this was a piece that I didn't have a lot of guidance on, and so I actually used my training and everything else, and I sort of applied it to the process of screening potential tenants, how I
Awesome.
screen potential applicants.
Yeah.
And I thought this is the piece that I find that I'm hearing a lot from investors is I don't
Sweet.
know the process. And so this
Sweet.
is just something that I thought I just wanted to help, just if I can provide some value just to help someone at the end of the day, because, we have our investment properties there for a reason. We
Yeah.
likely want it long term
Yeah.
to meet whatever goals we have. And the only way we could do that is to have really good people in our properties,
Wow.
because it really impacts our experience and it impacts our ROI at the
It's
end.
amazing that what you're saying here is that we didn't have people telling us what's the best way of how the proper way of doing it.
Mhm.
Um, we had to network and hear other people's stories, but in if you look at in the whole ecosystem is you have a realtor, you can go, they will show you properties, you have a broker, you can apply for your mortgage. It's a very subtle process,
Yes.
and suddenly you own this brick now, and you have to put people into it, or you have people already into it, right? So
Right.
ooh, now the problem is yours now. I mean, the problem, not necessarily a problem, but the business is yours. right?
Right.
It is a
Yeah.
business, like you said. Now you own that business, right? It's an entity of the business, right? So now is the time to, really is you are selling the service of renting the property, service of living. If you compare the two, it's really a service that you providing a place with a roof.
Right. Yeah.
So and that's where I find that your guideline, really it is, for me it fits it perfectly into the due diligence,
Well, thank
because
you.
you're providing a step by step and what to look for, how to do. But not only because what is interesting is that you start with the end game. You are trying to figure out what is the tenant profile you want, and then you start that, because your ad starts like this. Usually we will just start with, right away, we do crappy job of putting the ad out there, and suddenly you get all kind of tenants. But I think by putting your ads very descriptive, is it's almost like you are selecting tenants. It's almost like you kind of narrowing down. You want a family with kids, mature, you know what I mean, compared to three boys or three girls, or I don't know, like a family profile. It almost looks like, what are you looking for, right?
For sure. I mean, if you're going to look at advertising your single family home, is going to look very different than your home that is close to a university and it's a student rental. That wording and how you're going to explain your property is going to attract likely students, because it will simply probably say, this is walking distance to university or college, and you're going to attract that just by in the wording, versus your single family home, in your A neighborhood will look very different from
Yeah,
that perspective.
absolutely. And schools and walking distance and all that
Yes,
stuff. Yeah.
exactly. Or downtown
Got
or
it.
whatever it is. Mhm.
Wow. How can the viewers download your or get your guideline or guidance
Yeah.
checklist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're following me on Instagram at the Rental Property Mom, there's a link to the guideline there, and then you could just go onto my website at www.kennedyandco.ca, and they can also download it there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. It's all
Mhm.
free. Good
Of
nuggets there.
course, yeah.
We are helping the community here. All right. So
Yes.
um so let's say I bought the property, okay? And I want to talk about a little bit of how to engage your services, right? So I bought the property. I have no idea, never placed any tenants. What will be the first conversation I'm having with you?
Yeah, so typically those who are interested in our services, they would book a call through our website, and then we would sort of do a intake meeting there. And it really is just me understanding what type of property it is, if the investor knows even what market rents are, because sometimes they're not aware. We would go through in detail about the property, what they're looking for, their expectations. And so get a good sense of who they are and what they're looking for, and then I tell them a little bit about our services. And again, sometimes it's not a fit, right? Like it depends on am I able to help them? And I'm a very upfront person. I'll sort of tell it like it is. If it might not be a legal unit, or there's things that aren't don't comply to the standards of what tenants are looking for, maybe it's not a good fit, right? So, we do have that conversation to just identify if I'm a fit for them and they're a fit for us as well. From there, if they're interested, then we, they complete a contract with us, and then we go and we take a look at their unit. So visit the unit.
Okay, you visit the unit, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I make sure I kind of do the recommendations on, if the unit needs some repairs. And again, this is my recommendations. It's completely up to the client if they want to take them. But again, it's always around how can you showcase and how can you get the best market rent, is maybe doing some small things. And then what we would do is we would get a photographer, videographer in there, take really professional pictures. We'd write the ad, we would post it. We would do everything from the beginning of photos, applicant management, screening, showings, all the way to signing the lease and adding addendums to the lease if needed. And then we ask that the client meet with the tenants, because ultimately, once we hand over the keys, it's their relationship. And they need to agree, obviously, on the tenants as well. But, you know, I always say that they interview them either over the phone, face-to-face video, depending on where the potential tenants are located, or in person, at least, to make sure that they're comfortable with them.
So do you have a filter that you do first based on the, so my first question would be, okay, now you are getting some applicants, right?
Mhm.
So are you dealing with those applicants directly as
Yeah.
a first filter?
Oh yeah, everything
Okay.
from doing the pre-screen to meeting in person. So
Okay.
ultimately, what we're doing through this whole process is saying, here are the maybe two best
Okay.
out of you know everyone,
Okay.
and then allowing the
The
client to
owner.
decide at that point. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's amazing. They get to see, you know, what the selections are, and again, going back to the piece of relationship, right? How can you, in the future, deal with this? You know, how the communication, the people, you know, the
for
people
sure.
interaction. You know, that's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. All right. Wow. Lots of nuggets that you provided, and lovely to see that your background in human resources is really helping the investor community. It's amazing skills that you have there. So
Thank
thank you
you.
for thank you thank you for that. It's not an easy task, you know, but it is a very critical piece of the puzzle in the whole
Yeah,
investing, you know, journey.
for sure, for
Um,
sure.
some basic questions just to close up our conversation
Yeah.
here. This is being amazing. So and you know what, sorry, I've been seeing your videos, you being muscling up, running around. what's your what's your healthy snack, you know,
Yes, so
because
I'm
working from
always
home is not really helping as much,
it
you
is
know, like
not helping. It is not. Trust me, I am going to my cupboards a lot during the day, which is why I actually always crave like something sweet. I have a sweet
uh-huh.
tooth and I'm always craving chocolate. So I always have protein bars around. Like I have to have one everywhere I go. So yeah, that's
Oh
my go-to. I don't
wow.
know if that's really healthy because it's probably really high in sugar, but
Yeah.
it helps with you know, my little chocolate cravings or my sweet tooth.
I like dark chocolate, you know, the
Yes,
small Costco square ones, you know,
I
the
get
little
those
ones.
too. Yes, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, so it's been very hard to kind of work from home. The fridge is right there at the, you know, at the 10-meter apart. You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
um, any books that you like to recommend to our viewers that really helped you in your journey, investor journey or mindset journey, if you want?
Yeah, for sure. One of my favorite all-time favorites is Money People Deal. I see it in the back in your background too. It's just such a great book.
Mm,
I read it again just recently, for a second time, and it's just again just it's like I'm learning something again, or at least validating what we're doing is correct. But it
yeah,
provides it's written very simply, and it provides really good strategies. And it's, you know, one helps you with different investment strategies, but it's also a mindset book too.
right.
So I really enjoy that one. And then I think the other one, which is more around mindset, is The Slight Edge.
Okay.
That one is who is the author of that?
I have not.
Jeff Olson. Jeff Olson is the author, but yeah, that's just around, you know, simple things that you could do every day to get to your goals, right? Because I think ultimately a lot of investors they're investing part-time.
Right.
You could be working a full-time job, and there's only a certain number of days that you can, or pardon me, hours in the day that you can commit to things like real estate. So,
Right.
you know, it's what can you do every day, little things, small steps to help you reach your goal. So it's a great book.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
And you can do it, this investor journey, you can do it while we're working, you know, but it's just that mindset
For
you need
sure.
to have. And you know, the goals, that's your beacon, that's pretty much your what do you call it, the lighthouse, right?
Yes,
That
exactly.
is you know, directing your big ship to go to the right place, you know. So that's kind of those are amazing books, again, Maggie, I want to thank you thank you on this episode here. It is being amazing. Tenant nuggets are the conversation that nobody speak about it too many times. Like, so it's an amazing to see that you are sharing all this knowledge and how to do it properly. So I will be putting your details on the description of the video and how they can reach out to you. And let's help people, because people should not be stopping investing or not wanting to invest because they don't know how to deal with the tenants. There
Exactly.
is a way, and basically in today's world, everything is outsourced, so why not do this piece as well?
Yeah, for
Don't lose the
sure.
deal.
Exactly. Never lose that deal.
Never lose that. That's again the mindset, right? So don't get stuck there. There is a solution out there. Reach out to Maggie, and people like Maggie, they can help you through the process and making sure you select the right tenant.
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Nasir. I really appreciate it. It's been an honor to be on your show and podcast. So thank you.
Thank you very much for joining, and we'll bring you back again here, to talk a little bit more of the stories and and the success that you created for other investors.
Sounds great.
All right, you take care.
You
Thanks
as
very
well.
much.
Okay.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.